On the phone, we have a gentleman who played in the National Football League. He played for several years. Now he's involved with a number of causes. How are you doing today, Mr. Wooten?
I'm doing great. Absolutely great.
How did you end up choosing where you went to college?
Went to the University of Colorado. I came into the National Football League in my rookie year, 1959, fifth round draft pick of the Cleveland Browns.
You
I'm an old man.
Yeah, not that old.
Yeah, I'm a Texan by birth. Grew up over in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and went to high school there, and from there to Colorado in 1965.
How did New Mexico and New Mexico State let you get out to Colorado? Were you heavily recruited?
Yeah, I probably what happened really is that my mom fell in love with the freshman football coach at Colorado, a gentleman by the name of Hugh Davidson. And my mom just took a liking to him and said over and over, this Coach Davidson is an excellent man, and that's where I really want you to go to school. And I sort of liked Bob Blackman. I don't know if you remember that name.
Sure.
Who he was at Denver in my sophomore and junior year, and then he got the job at Dartmouth. And he kept recruiting me. I fortunately had grades to go there, and I really liked Bob Blackman. And but my mom just said, "Hey, that is a long way from home, from Carlsbad, New Mexico to Dartmouth." So when she said that, I knew that that wasn't what she wanted. So I have absolutely no regrets. Colorado is great for me. I went there, had a great time. We won there as players, and great friendships. Boy Dollar, Eddie Dove, Stransky, all those guys, we're still friends today. So I have no holler about going to Colorado.
Did you ever learn how to ski while you're out there?
That again?
Did you ever learn how to ski while you're out there in Colorado?
No, and that's all my fault. Bob Beatty, who was our freshman football coach, and he was also the Colorado ski coach who went on to be Olympic ski coach. He used to beg me, Boots, just, I can teach you this. I can make you a heck of a, not talking about a competitive skier, but I can just, and I told him, I said, Coach, I am afraid, I thought I was going to have a chance to play pro football, and I go up there and tear up a knee, and I'll never be able to play. I just don't want to take that chance. So that's why I'm not a good skier. I'm not even a skier. I turned it down because I was afraid. Okay?
It seems perfectly logical to me. What was growing up in New Mexico like? I don't envision there being a large African-American population. I don't imagine there's a large population overall in New Mexico. But,
Well, you're absolutely right on all cases. But we had a great time. Let me just take a second to tell you how the Lord has blessed me, okay? As you well familiar with the Brown versus Board of Education.
Yes.
That taught us all, that integrated the schools across the country. That ruling would mean that you're going to start in the first grade, second grade, and so forth, which would have meant to me, in my own individual case there in Carlsbad, that I would have been out of high school before you were integrated at the high school level, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunate for us, the head coach, Ralph Boyer, Guy Wade, the principal, Tom Hanson, the superintendent of Carlsbad schools, got together for whatever reason and went to the students at Carlsbad High School and called an assembly and said, we want you to tell us whether you want the colored students to come here to this high school right now. Not wait for the regular first grade, second grade, third grade. We want to do it now. And the students voted overwhelmingly, stood up and voted in assembly that start coloreds coming here this fall. Otherwise, I never would have played organized football. I didn't play organized football until I was in the 10th grade, because freshmen did not go to high school there in Carlsbad.
They didn't make you feel. They didn't make you feel good that they really wanted you to play and the other guys to go to school and get the education.
Well, the whole thing is that what it showed was how students, even in that era of time, saw the fact that, hey, give everybody an opportunity to go to school here. We only had one school in Carlsbad. The kids all around Loving and Otis and all those little communities, they all bust into Carlsbad High School, and they voted. And that, as I said, that's where I'm blessed. Because if that hadn't happened, I never would have had the opportunity to play organized football. And, I probably would have graduated out of Carver High School and end up somewhere working in the mines, potash mines out there in Carlsbad, or digging a ditch or whatever. That's because we were a very poor family. I'm from a family of 6 with a single mother. Saw the movie Help. You saw my mom. This is what we came from. This is what we saw as youngsters. That is why I say football has given me every single thing that I ever wanted. I was able to get an education. I was able to go play pro football. I was able to go during my pro football career, buy my mom a home there in Carlsbad, pay off all her bills. All of this is a result of playing this great game that we all love as kids. But it's given me this. And this is why you see me fight for others to have the same opportunity. I never wanted to coach. Tex Ram here at the Cowboys, which brought me back to Texas to work for the Cowboys, to learn the business, and to be able to go and help others who I know have the same ability or more than I had. But that's why you hear us fighting the way we go after it. We're fortunate that we have played in this league. We try to do it the right way, and the Fitzpatrick Alliance recognizes it. All of us, not lawyers, administrative people, directors, all of us that work for this organization, not one single one of us is on salary or anything else. It's all give back. That's the way we roll. Okay?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Did you ever say to yourself, why didn't a case like Brown versus Board of Education happen before 1954?
We've lived long enough to know why. The president said it the other night there, last Tuesday night in his speech. Those of us who have lived That's why the movie Selma is so important movie. All of our youngsters, black and white, Hispanic, Jews, whatever, they should see this movie so that all of them start to understand where our country has come from and where we're trying to go and why we must eliminate the economic discrimination level, the racial, and it starts with the very, very simplest of things, of respect. That's all it is. Respect. Respect everybody. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like. Respect is the key word. Because if you respect everybody, you're never going to have problems with them, no matter who they are or what they're about.
No, you're absolutely.
I've seen it. I've come through all of the fights that we have and so forth. I sit with Dr. King back in the 60s when Carl Stokes was running for mayor of Cleveland. And I said to Dr. King, the reason why we as professional athletes cannot march with you or cannot walk the streets with you, because if people hit us or pour syrup on us or spit in our face, we're going to fight. And that will set back the cause. Where we can help you is on the economic, let's build an economic base. Let's build an educational base where our young people are understanding how important it is to have an education. That is what this whole thing is about, and moving, in that direction.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember Ellie and I talked to Wally Triplett, and he had a scholarship offer to a major college, and once they found out he was African American, they pulled it.
No question. I was down at the Senior Bowl early last week, and we were talking, and I remember in 1958, I got a letter from the Senior Bowl committee inviting me to play in the Senior Bowl. And when I filled out the application and everything to play and sent it back, I get the letter saying, we're sorry, we made a mistake. They went on the name Wooten, All-American. They hadn't seen the pictures, right? They just went on, at University of Colorado. I'm sure they never thought this might be a black guy, But anyway, we laugh at those things now because we've overcome that. Now you see black youngsters playing in all over the state of everywhere, Alabama and everywhere else. There's nothing more gratifying than to sit and look. I was looking at Alabama playing Mississippi on a game. And at one point in time during the game, every single player on Alabama and on Mississippi was a black guy. Just during the game, And you smile to yourself because you remember it wasn't that long ago that simply was not going to happen. So we recognize that we made great strides. That people talk about the Rooney Rule, and when are we going to stop, enacting it or pushing the Rooney Rule? When the day comes when you know that a person is given the opportunity simply because of his ability, and that he's not held back because of the color of his skin, that's when we will say we don't need the Rooney Rule. It may not happen in my lifetime. I hope it does. I would hope one day that I can say we don't need the Rooney Rule.
Well, you look at a sport like basketball, and in the NBA, a black coach is not a big deal. They've had plenty of them. But in the NFL, it seems more challenging for an African American to become a head coach.
Well, And you see it right throughout this country, throughout our government and everywhere else, in corporate America and everywhere else. There's still that element of people that simply have trouble with the black being in charge or the head of the organization or the head of the corporation. They simply have problems with that. And that's what we're still fighting. For that.
Well, you see a country where some people have a problem with the president of the United States, being an African American.
No question. When you sit and look at the fact that our government has always been executive, legislative, judicial. It's been our country forever and ever. That the head of states, of countries, everything comes through the executive office. Now, all of a sudden, we got the Speaker of the House inviting the Premier of Israel to come and speak. What is that about? What is that about? Huh?
It's all about politics, and it's about undermining negotiations with Iran and things like that. And some would say that borders on treason, and which side of the border, I suppose, depends on how you look at it. But
well, I've been in this, I've lived in this country since 1936, grew up, so forth. Never have I seen the president, the office of president, disrespected the way I've seen under President Obama. I've never seen it. And we've had some of the worst presidents ever during our lifetime. Totally inept. I've never seen them disrespected.
Yeah, well,
the way some of those, I don't mean them all, in the legislation and so forth, part of the department, have disrespected this president. And it's all because he's a black man. No other reason.
Yeah. Something says history will treat Barack Obama much more kindly than some of the folks out there.
Of course, it has to. It has to. When you realize that this man making a move to save the motor industry in this country, save this country. My dad told me many years ago that the automobile industry is the very backbone of this country. And you know it, and I know it, that it is. Because it spins off so many other jobs and industry and so forth, including buying gas. And, thank goodness now you can fill your car up without having to go into debt, right?
Right.
That is a joke.
You're right.
But, these are the kind of things, as I said, I think this is a great country. I love this country. And that's why I will do everything I can to make it live up to its creed that all men are created equal. That is where we're going to always stand. Always.
Was Paul, when you got drafted by the Browns, were you worried at all about playing for Paul Brown, that, there might be some problems being a black player playing on the Browns?
Not at all. Let's go back to 1946. Again, blessed to go to the Cleveland Browns. Go back to 1946.
Was that Mary Motley?
You may not know. From 1933 to 1946, African Americans were not allowed to play in the National Football League, simply because of George Halas President Marshall and that group simply said, we don't want, quote, the colors taking the jobs. So no blacks. So now here's Paul Brown, the All-American Conference. They'd won it over and over and over. And they want to bring the Cleveland Yanks or whatever they were called. They weren't the Browns. They were coming out of New York. And Paul Brown says very, very, very emphatically, I'm going to come and I'm going to play the guys who I feel can help me win. If you don't accept them, then I'm not coming. And that's when he came with Motley and Horace Gillum and Bill Willis and those guys. And ironically, first game, they put the team, now the Cleveland Browns, against the champions Philadelphia Eagles. And Paul Brown put a whipping on them, checked the score in 1946. Checked the score.
You're right.
So this is what we're talking about. So I can remember Paul Brown saying this over and over. I don't have any black Browns. I don't have any white Browns. All I have are Cleveland Browns. And even when we came there in 59, this was still his speech on opening day at training camp. If there's anyone that has trouble with this, with the problem of being a black Brown or a Cleveland Brown or whatever, then you let us know and we'll have you on your way. That's the way he dealt with it. That's the way he dealt with it. So consequently, I grew up under that atmosphere. I'd had it at Colorado. I'd had it with the Cleveland Browns. And all I had to do was go out there and play to the best of my ability. And I'd be fine. And that's what we did. And I'm fortunate. I'm proud of it. Proud of it to be one of the legends of the Cleveland Browns. Proud that we were able to win a championship in there in '64. Played in the next game there against Lombardi's group in '65. Proud of what we did there. And that's why Cleveland is so important to me, because I love everything that I was taught. It was meaningful to me.
Now, there was equality on the Browns as a team. Was it that way in real life in Cleveland?
No. In real life in Cleveland, the majority of blacks lived on the east side. We fought for what they had was de facto segregation in the school system, where you couldn't move into certain areas, into Shaker, into Warrensville, into Cleveland Heights. We fought those fights. And as I said, when Dr. King came there for his marches to fight de facto segregation and all that, as I told him, we can't march with you, because if they spit on us, we're going to fight. I'm not going to let another person spit on me or pour syrup on me or whatever. That's not my nature. But do I believe in what he was doing? Yes. Support him to the hilt. And as you know, when he came with the PUSH program, we were right in the thick of it with him, under Jesse, running that. So economic development in the community, yes, we were going to be a big part of that. But we could not march, could not sit in the streets of Cleveland or anywhere else. So he understood that and accepted that, and we're forever grateful to him because of it.
You and Jim Brown and Bobby Mitchell, you did a lot for racial equality in the NFL and in society. I mean, Bobby Mitchell gets traded to the Redskins, and he's the first African-American player on that team. They had to be really difficult on him, especially with that owner.
And they, the trade that was made between Cleveland and Washington to send Bobby Mitchell there and to give us Ernie Davis the first African American Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 draft pick, and so forth. Unfortunate, as I say all the time, Ernie was just too good of a person for this place, and the good Lord took it away from us before you ever played it down or anything. But the point is, the right man went to Washington, Bobby Mitchell. Not too many people could have done what Bobby Mitchell did in Washington. He's out of Arkansas, played at the University of Illinois, but was an outstanding person. His football exploits speak for themselves. All-pro, Hall of Famer, and everything. But his ability to handle what was going on, D.C. was the most segregated place in the world. There was only one hotel that we could stay in when we'd come in to play the Redskins. And that was the DuPont Plaza, located there in DuPont Circle there. And I don't even know if it exists today or not. That was the only hotel. And the fortunate thing, we put a whipping on them every year. Check the record. The only time they beat us was Bobby Mitchell coming back to Cleveland and beating us in 1962, coming back in there and catching a little square and pass and running it across the field and down the sideline to beat us. You know, I won't tell you what Paul Brown said about that, but, you know. I mean, we laugh about it now. It wasn't funny then. But
I'm sure.
Okay.
Now, when you came into the NFL, you and Gene Hickerson were sort of the rotating guards, and you would bring in the plays.
Right. Exactly. Huh? Yeah.
Did you enjoy that role, or did you say, "Hey, I want to be out there all the time"?
No, we understood his system, and again, I am forever grateful because it gave me an advantage to learn the game. Because we didn't just call the play, we called the snap count, we called the checkoff. You know, we called everything. So consequently, actually, when we come in the huddle, the quarterback only repeated what I had already said. You know, because number one, we gave him the whole thing, including the checkoff and everything else. But what it did was it taught me football. Because Paul called the plays at practice. See? So we had to know what the quarterbacks knew and where they were looking at the pass patterns and everything else to say it intelligently to the quarterback. All of this helped me to become a better football guy, helped me to learn the game better and so forth.
You had a great offensive line there, opening holes for Jim Brown. Who was the leader of that line? I mean, you had Groza, yourself,
Shafrath,
Jimmy Ray Smith, I think, too.
Well, Jimmy Ray was with us early on, and then when Dallas came into the league, Jimmy Ray he was from Baylor, Texas guy, and he wanted to come back here. So he left us and came back, here. No question, we had an excellent offensive line. But let me tell you this. Jim Brown made blocking easy. Okay? Let me just say it to you that way. Jim Brown made blocking easy because all you had to do was to stay on your feet. Stay on your feet, and the play is designed where he knew your head was supposed to be. If you did that, Jim was going to do the rest. All you had to do was stay on your feet, don't fall down in the hole, and make sure your head was where it's supposed to be. And he was going to take the rest of it.
And it didn't hurt that Jim Brown was about as big as the defensive lineman and certainly could take on the linebackers and defensive backs with not much problem.
That's exactly right. Jim, even though he's right at 228, Jim probably had the strength and the girth from that point of a guy about 270, 280 with great explosion and speed. So the good Lord blessed him, you know.
Was he the best? Was he the best ever?
I've seen them all, and it's no question. He is definitely the best ever. No question. I mean, they're great backs. But when you line them up, no question he's the best. Not because I played with him. Simply because he was the best. You know, this guy was an All-American lacrosse, basketball, you know, he could do it all.
Yeah.
Good Lord gifted. He's gifted. No question. And above all, competitive. Competitive.
I hope you remind him. I hope you remind him from time to time that if it wasn't for your blocking, he would have been nothing.
I tell him that in my sleep. From face to face, I said what I just said to you. You made it easy because all we had to do was to stay on our feet. You know, he would tell you, "Don't fall in the hole." You know, I can't get to the hole if you were laying in there and everything. Stay on your feet. That way, I'll see where the daylight is going to come. You know, he had great vision. He had it all. I mean, he had it all.
The only thing he wasn't good at was acting.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. No question. I've seen some of the worst of them. You know, but you know, hey, that's what they want. You know, that's what they do. But no, you know, we don't have no Oscar winners here.
When the Browns got rid of Paul Brown and Blanton Collier became the coach, you became a starter. How did Collier differ from Brown as a coach?
Blanton Collier was a great teacher. He had worked under Paul, of course, as you know, but he was an outstanding teacher. And consequently, he simplified it, what we were doing, to the point of, you hear me speak earlier about making sure your head is where it's supposed to be. Lombardi gets the credit for Run the Daylight. Run the Daylight really came from Blanton Collier. If you look at our film, you will see that what Lombardi is talking about, we were already doing it. That is, run the daylight. In other words, defensive people are taught to play your head. If you lay your head on the left, fight through it. What we were taught, lay your head on the left, and when you feel the defensive guy fighting through your head, then just bring that right elbow up and keep him going the way he is fighting to get to. And that's what Run the Daylight is. So if you go back and look at us in 63, 64, 65, in 63, Jim could have easily gained 2,500 yards. Not only talking about 230. In 63, he gained 867, 863, I think it is. Went right in there. If you go back and look at those tapes, you'll see Jim coming out in the third, fourth quarter. And Kenny Webb, Charlie Scales, and those guys going in the game. Of course, that's the way Jim was. He said, let Charlie, let Kenny finish it out. But if you go back and look at us running that football, you'll see what Lombardi talks about when he said run the daylight, because that's what we were doing. Lombardi got the credit for it because he came with the phrase, but we were doing it in 63 and 64.
When
Okay?
I think, yeah, when I think of the best guard tandem in NFL history, and I think of you and Hickerson, is there somebody that rivals you two guys as being the best guard tandem? Do you think?
Well, you'd have to give a little credit, and I'm laughing. I'm saying that. I think that Fuzzy and Thurston and Kramer, we feel that we were better simply because we were able to gain the yardage. Jim led the league in 8, 7, 8 years as a leading rusher. With our sweep, we thought our sweep was, even Lombardi again gets credit for, we're going to hit it right here and so forth. But when you look at us run it, we think that we ran it better than anybody. And the proof is in the pudding. Jim Brown led the league in it for years with that sweep. We think that we could run it better than anybody.
And
again, Lombardi gets we're going to hit it right through this alley. When I see him doing that, this is what, I mean, he's telling his guys what we do. This is what we do, And fortunate for us, Hickerson is in the Hall of Fame. We've had the privilege of blocking for 3 Hall of Fame backs. Jim, Leroy Kelly, Bobby Mitchell. It's not bad.
Not too shabby. Was it different blocking for Leroy than it was for Jim?
No. Ran it the same way. Kelly was with us as a rookie in '64. He saw it the way we ran it. When Jim retired after the '65 season, if you look at the records, Kelly led the league in '67, '68, same way. We never stopped running the same way.
Was it tough? Was it tough when you ended up getting sent to Washington, knowing that you're going to that town, which was one of the most racist towns in the U.S., even though Bobby Mitchell had been there a few years playing for George Preston Marshall?
We knew what Washington was about. We knew that George Preston, at that time, he had set his mind that he was going to control the South, right? All the southern states. I'm talking about TV now, So
right.
Consequently, he was going to play to that market, and consequently, when you go in and play, it was South Carolina Day and all those kind of things, The whole thing is that we knew what Washington was about, and it just inspired us. When we heard them play Dixie, doing the pregame and all during the game and everything else, it just motivated us or inspired us or fired us up, whatever you want to call it. We weren't going to let Washington beat us. To let them beat us means that they were better, they were doing what was right over what we stood for. And that was our motivation. I hope you understand what I just said to you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Definitely.
Okay.
On this past Martin Luther King Day, the Fritz Pollard Alliance came out against the use of Redskins as the Washington team's nickname. Generations ago, people, I don't think, gave much of a second thought to that nickname. But over time, people have become more aware and enlightened. And does it sort of dumbfound you why Washington would hold on to a nickname like that?
Well, let me back up and tell you our involvement in this. A year or so ago, we fought strongly for the elimination of the N-word on the field of play, in the offices and practice locker rooms, meeting rooms, and so forth in the NFL. Because of that, many of the Native American groups, organizations under Oneida came to us for us to support what they were trying to do. And we had our Jeremy DeRue, our legal professor, to do all the research, and we came up with a plan. And that plan was that we would go to Washington, to Richmond, to their training camp and everywhere, and meet with them, Bruce Allen, Dan Snyder, and the organization, and say to them, we have met with the Native American organization, Oneida, and so forth, and what we're asking you to do is to come meet together. Let's all sit down face to face and talk about why this is a word that we should eliminate to the point of changing the name for the Washington Football Club. And we waited, we talked, we sent emails, made phone calls. Cyrus Mary, our legal counsel, who is headquartered there in D.C., met with them individually, on by the phone, emails, and so forth, trying to get them to come back. Not come back, but come to the table. The Oneida group simply wanted to sit and talk as to why this mascot name bothered them as men and as people. And they finally, Bruce Allen finally said to Harry Carson, our executive director, that they weren't going to meet, they weren't going to change. And we then took the stand that we supported the name change. If we're going to stand for, and many, as you well know, many educational and rock stars and everybody else said, oh, they old school, there's nothing wrong with the N-word and so forth. The N-word, by definition, was created to make us as men of color to feel inferior. You can't desensitize that word. You can't, our young people that use it are showing a disrespect for every single person who have died, who have marched for the elimination of that word. That's our position. And that's the position that we take on the word Redskin.
What's Bobby Mitchell's position? He was a longtime executive with the Redskins. Has he made any comments about the name?
Well, they said that Bobby, supports the name. I can't say that he does or he doesn't, because our position as an organization is that the word is a slur by definition, and we're asking them to change it. We respect Dan Snyder. We respect Bruce Allen and Bobby Mitchell and Doug Williams and all the other guys, and the black and white. But we do not accept the name. We think it should be changed. That we think that what Seattle does is look at Seattle. The Seahawks primarily is an Indian logo, Native American logo. And look how they do it. Okay. So we think that that's the way it should be done.
So if Washington could could keep its logo but change to something like the Warriors or some other.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. The Braves. It used to be the Braves when they first moved out of Boston. Remember? I don't know if you don't remember, but you know of it, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. It's a few years before my time.
And the thing that we got to remember is this: that the man who did all this was one of the world's worst racists. Understand this, man. Understand that his granddaughter has come out and said her grandfather should have changed. This is what we say wanted to say if we ever got in a meeting together to Dan Snyder. What are your children and your grandchildren going to say 20, 30 years from now? I wish, Granddad, I wish Dad had changed their name. You see what I mean? No. All of this is part of what we were intending to do if they had come to the table. If they come to the table, this is what we would have done. This is what we would have presented to them. You know, nobody's trying to override you or make you, what we're trying to do is to bring what is simple, the respect of people. Respect of people. Okay?
Yeah. But Dan Snyder's of the opinion it's my franchise and nobody's going to tell me what to do. And
all we can do is stand for what we think is right.
Right.
We can't. We certainly don't have any vote to make him change it or anything else.
Yeah.
But we are never going to stand for anything that is against the dignity and the respect of people. And the Native Americans certainly are wanting what they have meant to this country and where they, parts of what the history of this country, they certainly are deserving of that respect.
Now,
he says, well, there are many Native Americans who don't have trouble with this. Think about it. How many people did you hear say to us, oh, the N-word doesn't mean what it used to mean, and so forth? Yeah. We've had some of our top educators say that. The word has been desensitized. We've had the rock and roll, what they call the hip-hop groups, that the word doesn't mean the same. My statement is very simple. How can it not mean the same when the word itself was created to make men and women that look like me feel that they were inferior?
Yeah.
That's what
as you were saying, when does a slur not become a slur? When your generation dies off, when my generation dies off, there's a lack of sensitivity to understand the roots of those slurs. And
they won't change. They won't. If we as a people do not stand strong and make our people and our young people understand, that's why it is so important that our young people, black and white, see and understand what respectability means and what it is for and the dignity of all people. If you just see children playing out in the street, out in the playgrounds, you won't hear those kind of words. They have to be taught this. Somebody has to, and that is why it is so important that all of our youngsters, black and white, Asian, Hispanic, everyone, understand what it means to respect each other as people. It is just that basic. It is just that basic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, none of us is born with hate in our heart.
No.
That's not the way children come into the world. They have to be taught that. They have to see that example. I mean, hopefully they don't see that example, but
No, you're right, though. You're absolutely right. And this is what we preach every single day, you know. Okay.
Now, you say when you were a player, you couldn't march, but it seems your generation, you, Jim Brown, Bill Russell, others, took activist roles at some point in their lives, and you seem to have done so more than a lot of athletes that have followed since. You sort of paved the way for athletes to make more money, have more comfortable lives, things like that. And I'm not sure they all have an appreciation for what you and Jim Brown and others went through. Or Sensi Mac?
If the athletes of today just take it upon themselves to be a part of the community in which they live, you know, be a part of the community, go to school board meetings. When you get a chance, go and help others. So let's fortunate as we were. And many other players do that. But we need for them to overly, you know, exert yourself. Give back to the community. Pay it forward. Do whatever you want.
Right.
But be a part of making that community a better place. Use the platform that you have as professional athletes to show our youngsters how important, when I say that, I'm talking all colors now, to show them how important respectability is, and respecting each other. Show them how important education is. The education is the primary way of making life better for everybody. You make it better for your own family. I was able to do things simply because I had an education. That education gave me the ability to go and do other things. And therefore you can give back. You can give back to your community. You can do more for your family. That's why education is so important to us.
Was the transition
Okay. All right.
Was the transition to the front office, when you went from player to being in the front office with the Eagles and the Ravens and the Cowboys, what sort of process was that for you?
That process primarily came with, after playing there in Cleveland, Jack Schramm calling me and asking me, would I come visit 2 or 3 days, see if we liked each other. And I said, I'm not interested in coaching Mr. Schramm at all, period. He said, no, I'm talking front office. And I said, well, I'm not sure I know anything. He said, we'll train you. Just come down and spend 2 or 3 days with us, see how we like each other. That transition, again, because of education, you know, that's a trained mind can learn anything. That's why education is so important. Because if you are educated, you have a trained mind, you can learn. There's not anything you can't learn. And that's why, not that I'm a Phi Beta Kappa by any stretch, I'm just dealing with that particular fact. But the point is education, opportunity. That's how it all works. It all evolves. Education, opportunity, preparation, looking ahead, vision, working with others, respecting all people, all the time. That's what life is.
Definitely.
That's what it is.
During your playing days, I'll ask one more question. During your playing days, who was the toughest defensive lineman you went up against?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I had them all.
I know.
Big Daddy Lipscomb.
Yeah.
Bob Lilly. Okay? Those,
I won't argue with either one of those guys.
put those guys right there. Bob Lilly, Big Daddy Lipscomb. You know, and the thing about it is, both of them had outstanding quickness. Outstanding quickness. You know, that's what makes it difficult to block a guy, right?
Yeah.
You know.
But you have pretty good quickness. There's, stories of you blocking more than one guy on a play, blocking a couple of guys.
Exactly, because of our system, So consequently, that's what you have to use. But when you got someone as quick as Lily, and if you're watching in that frog stance, he could get his hands on you, so you had to get back a little bit away from him. Yeah. And of course, now I got to make sure my center doesn't put the ball right up under his butt. Get that ball out of there, because that's the line of scrimmage, right?
Yes, sir.
Whether we can put the ball out. So these are the kind of things. But when I look at Lily, Bob Lilly, and Big Daddy, and that's you
pretty
don't
good.
get too much sleep the night before.